Okay, I'm back with the second movement, scherzo movement of the Prokofiev Sixth Sonata. Still working on a fair amount of hand-separate work, but I'm trying to make things stick. So I'm going to review. I haven't gotten very far, the first three lines, and even this is a review. So I had a decision that I was going to start the new thought and the new gesture and the new phrase on the fourth beat of the fourth measure. So finish now, here, now, admittedly, those three notes can be anacrusic to the next downbeat. The theme itself starts crucically on the downbeat of the first measure. I've isolated the fourth beat is physically. So I can have two thoughts. One, finish the first phrase and then. So that's what I'm going to do. I really want musically to bind that together and to point to the next downbeat. Physically, I have to remind myself that my hand shifts on the fourth beat, going 2 to 3. So okay, coming at me too quickly, and I had just yesterday decided to shift the fourth finger on the downbeat of 15. There we go. Useful. And then here, I'm only going to use one quarter note as a pickup. So let's go back to 13. So, sharp or F, as it's written as E sharp. And then it goes on and does different things. So I need to have clarified this. Okay. There is, as I've repeated out loud, there's no reason if I'm going to not be aware of an accidental immediately. I should mark it down. This E sharp has to be second nature to me. So okay, I've just, I think, violated a certain principle that I'm doing an awful lot hands alone, and I don't know how the coordination works. So I want to make sure that I combine the left hand with the right hand in some of the earlier fragments to see how it behaves. See if there are coordination issues or mental issues or whatever. There's a big shift in measure 3. Well, at the most, I want to combine that, probably a lot less. So the first skip needs awareness in the left hand. The right hand can handle itself. So the downbeat. So, for example, there's so much going on. Shifting around. I am starting to see why I had previously negotiated for myself a different hand division from what Prokofiev wrote. He writes 2 plus 2 on the third beat of 3. times I've changed my mind here. I'm going to take 3 notes in the right hand, because that way I don't need such a complicated placement here in the left hand. I'm better equipped then to go. So that means I'm going to change the fingering I've written for the left hand. I'm going to go to 1 on the 3rd E, and I'll be ready for the next octave. So it's shift. Considering how much motion is going on. So this is an example of a tiny little distraction. The left hand has nothing very difficult to do, but it's just distracting enough. Take me away from the sense of how the right hand feels. So I've got to turn that into a composite gesture where I feel the coordination and the ease through both hands and arms at the same time. So let's see. This is an easy enough coordination when the left hand repeats. Then under the left hand I want to press that. So thing here is I'm adding the left hand. That's the new thing right now, but it's the left hand that has by far the easier thing. Again, I'm demonstrating it by talking while playing and looking away. So I'll concentrate again on the more complex right hand. I've written 1, 2, 3 in the left hand at the end of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, yeah. So I can get back up to 2 and 1 and then turn my hand over on 3, 2 on G sharp, A, B, and then 3rd finger for C sharp. So myself thinking that hard, I know that the solution is not yet there. In other words, if I don't have a sense of the feel of it, or if I'm staring at the music, or if there's just too much swimming around in my head, I know that it's too complicated, so I have to simplify, or assimilate, or do something to make the experience more pleasurable. For example, getting to the downbeat of measure 9, finding that chord with the D natural and the C sharp. I can't be thinking about it, so I have to know what it feels like in advance of feeling it. In other words, I have to anticipate the sensation and deliver my hand to the right place. So that becomes a fluid gesture. And a big shift, left hand. Telling myself what voices move and when. So in this case, the right hand and the left hand, the right hand top are moving in parallel, while the bottom of the exact contrary, and certainly not with the same black-white topography. E at the bottom. On the fourth finger I need. Fourth finger. Three times B flat. Because the fourth time is going to shift to B natural. So. And then I just grabbed it. Any old thing and it was wrong. So again, I have a line mark to indicate that the new gesture, the new musical thought, is G sharp augmented, going to the equivalent of an F minor. The fingering is fine, but always when you make a fingering choice based on one or another pathway. In other words, in this case, on measure 16 going into 17, I've chosen to make the augmented chord 1, 2, 4 to get me to 1, 2, 5 on F minor. But getting to 1, 2, 4 is not intuitive, it's not right under my hand. So it requires a specific thought to guide me to that new place. So that's what I have to make part of my practice and my awareness. Again, it's not hard, but it's amazing if I just sort of nonchalantly do this. The fingers are not right over the keys they need to be on because I need to shift to that place that's going to benefit me on the next downbeat. So and a second thought, in other words. Let me go back. That's a big shift. Musically speaking, we're going, there's a sense of a rise when we get to this tonal center. So, hearing the modulation, feeling now somewhere else. So, I've got to feel confident in that fashion, and I'm starting to. The left hand is not at the same spacing. And you can hear right away that there's just much more confidence there. And it's based on deciding which tool in my toolkit fits the given challenge. In other words, what do I think about? Where do I think about it? What groups do I trust? Going back to my expression, choreographing my attention. I think that's precisely what I'm doing here. Knowing what to do with my attention, putting it in the right place. Let me try to explain what I'm thinking about. The close parts in contrary motion and being sure the left hand has a whole note, okay, and then I didn't shift to 4. That's where my thought needed to be. Shift to 4, shift to B natural, open up to the 9th, the 4th, going into F minor. So that's it. And then the whole thing becomes more casual because, whoops, wrong finger at the bottom. Okay, I start to have a sense of well-being that says, gee, those things belong together. They're not in isolation, they're not pitted against one another, they're not intentionally trying to distract me. It's just that when I feel a distraction, it's because of a lack of integration of the coordination, or the sounds, or the fingering, or I simply don't know where to put my attention because there's too much coming at me. So I'm going to go back and review. This is a newish fingering, maybe it's a new old fingering. I much prefer it over Prokofiev's division because it gets my left and right hand out of the way of one another. space, I would play them both with thumb on the inner note. But then I'd have to shift for the right hand. So 1-5-2 immediately makes them interfere with one another. And by redistributing, they don't do anything of the sort. So I like it. Yes. I have to have settled down here. Finish the job now. Remembering two different thoughts. One is start the new phrase and then shift the hand position in the right hand. Finish the phrase here. Start the new phrase, then go on. Okay. For those of you who are finding this really painful, please forgive me. I would like to have learned this instantly, but in a way I'm just as fascinated with what I allow to get in the way. In other words, what doesn't stick, things that I believe I could know by now or should know by now, or who knows. I don't mind showing what's not working because I know it's working. I mean, the process itself may be more elongated, but I'm aware of what's not working, and therefore I'm well on my way to making it work. So, does that make sense? I think it does. Yes. I'm getting that one now. Yes. I'm not sure about my left hand fingering there. Yes. I've written a line to help me with my repeated notes here. Start again. Otherwise, I'm going to get stuck repeating. I don't want them to feel like repeated notes. I want them to feel like a concluded motive and another one that just happen to share ending and beginning notes. So this is in measure 7. Start again. Yes. Wits about me, as the expression goes. I can make that work, but my body doesn't embrace it. This is fine. All of these first inversion 1-2-5s. Oh, I've written something different. I've written 1-2-3-5. I should have paid attention. Now, when I'm at measure 10, getting to A major on 1-2-4 is not a pleasant experience. That would be it sequentially. But my body says, considering how light you want this to be, it's piano, it's staccato, you're certainly not doing a light thing. With the hand extended like that, it's not hugely uncomfortable, it just doesn't feel trustworthy. My two druthers would be 1-2-5, pretty standard fingering, or even better sometimes, 2-3-5 on the A major first inversion. That's what I had the previous measure. So let's see if there is anything I can do to just dial back what I had. Well, my body wins here. The 5-3-2 really pays for itself. Even though I then have to move more next, it just sort of reaches out and grabs that chord because the sensation pleases it. I'm speaking for my body in this case. So you see, I'm moving my hand around, but I'm moving it around nonchalantly. Let me show you what I mean. See, I can do it without looking, with a strong sense that it feels right. And then even going on to this 7th is not a big deal. It's 2 black notes. So okay, tiny little decision that makes a big difference in sense of well-being, execution, and simplicity. There it is. I barely thought about it. Because I went for the sensation that my body trusts in that given chord. So. What's that? I'm pleased. Okay, pat on the head. I see I've planned to get fifth down here. That's the second beat of 12. Now the only way that's going to work, well, I don't know. I'm certainly not going to be able to reach it. I have to deliver to it. So if I'm on 5-2, which is not the nicest place to be, but provides good planning, that's okay. Again, ideally, well, super ideally, D and F sharp in the left hand would be 5-3. But that would be a silly fingering because I have to bring my hand up to the right and then cast my left hand down there to thumb. So that's, although ideal in an isolated situation, it's not ideal in this context. So 2-3 or possibly 2-4 would be ideal for sealing this up. But then finding this, if I'm looking, no big deal. But I am curious almost always about whether or not, probably since I taught a blind student for 4 years, whether or not the sense of touch, my kinesthetic awareness of where I am on the keyboard is sufficient to help give me a sense of security there. I'd rather have all of my senses reinforcing that security. I don't want to have to stare unless it's absolutely necessary. Even for people who have played Schumann Fantasy, second movement, for example, which I have taught but have never played, and consider, like many people who've considered it, that all the leaps at the end of that movement are almost get in the way of your desire to learn the piece. But many people who have succeeded have practiced it with their eyes closed, have practiced finding that spatial relationship. But this is not a big deal. Now, however, it is a super not big deal if I happen to go to 1-2. All of the other fingerings that are much more comfortable for finishing here then required me to have active involvement in just placing my left hand on D. 1 and 2 takes care of it. So, and I never wrote anything there. I just left it up to chance. So, going from 1-5 to 1-2 is not exactly intuitive, but it's a reasonable demand, and as you can see, it works. So. Transition. Yes. I forgot. The right hand comes down and it's thumb line. Okay. Let me review this part. Needs some attention. I know I got here yesterday, but if it had really been assimilated, I would have played all the way past here with the greatest sense of ease. So I know that I'm still in learning phase here. This has already been decided. Major 7th here. It's not horrible, but it does require a commitment to that specific specific sensation with the hand tilted slightly to favor the thumb on C sharp. So tilt, tilt, and 2 4s in a row. I see. I just sound. Is up to. I think I've marked a double thumb. In other words, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. There are 6 ascending notes. I have 5 fingers in my left hand. But I mean, it's very hard to give up the deliciousness of playing 4, 3, 2 on the 3 black notes all in a row. So that leaves me with the thumb on C sharp, and I just move over and define my hand position in terms of the new E sharp and G sharp below it. In other words, I'm not trying to go 1 to 1 in isolation. I'm going from this comfortable hand position to this comfortable hand position. And the thumb note just happens to be the first of those 2 notes. In 7, I'll go from D natural up to D sharp. So now it's down to B, up to D sharp. Stay with it. Whoops. Left hand shouldn't mirror what the right hand is doing. Okay, and then it's going to do different stuff. So. What my desire right now is to go on and do this different stuff, but I know full well that I don't quite deserve it. In other words, I want to reward myself with moving on when I've sealed the deal a little more, when I'm able to bind those first 3.5 lines together better. So I still have some work to make this familiar. Getting into the transition, I think, is always a big mistake to get to the end of a section like here and then say, well, I'll face what I do later, because it always feels like a shock when you then start the new section. If you practice the transitions, no matter how odd they may be, then the change itself becomes familiar, which is great. Shifts. I'm going 2 in the left hand on 19, changing to 5, so I can grab 1 3 on the chord G sharp, B sharp, and then shift to 4, and then shift to 5. That's an awful lot of stuff. And I want it to be second nature. notes in a frenzy won't avail me much if I'm not at ease with the motions that deliver the note. So, exactly. So. Fingerings indicate I have in 18, 4, 4, 5, And that's, again, I've got a fingering from the previous line that's confusing me. I don't have a fingering, let's see, 4 to 4, 5 to 4, probably. Sharp would have been nice. You can hear the little groupings I'm using. This belongs by itself. That's a finished job. Comfortable, so flamboyant gesture with the rise of the major seventh, and it's the melody. It's a mistake to assume that those two qualities necessitate concentrating on them, because there's something a little more wicked, a little more ungainly in the left hand going on that needs more attention, at least for now. Interestingly, when I embraced the piano espressivo that was written there, it made it easier for me, because then I was savoring the melodic reach. Kind of built in a willingness to enjoy the moment and to take time as opposed to pressing forward. So, that's better. Let me back up a little more. I was completely arbitrary when I went. In other words, I let my eye alight on a spot and I said, let me try from there. And that's important because it's too easy to get almost superstitious about where you're able to start from. You need to be able to feel a sense of familiarity as quickly as possible. I use the analogy of blindfolding someone and then sticking them in a neighborhood that they either do or don't know or know somewhat. Can they find their way to familiar territory? So you have to be able to look for the landmarks. You have to start to make all the turns you normally take for granted, all the twists, all the landmarks, much more apparent to you. So you can open your eyes and say, I'll turn right at the next corner and down the street and there I go. And that's what I want to feel here. Let's see. Sometimes that's what happens, the thing you thought was easy or innocuous is something you just don't think enough about, and then suddenly under fire you think, I never thought about this. For example, the first measure, I've written a 2/5 standard fingering for my tritone. Certainly didn't write 1-1-1, but that's what I'm going to be doing. And I need the awareness of the simplicity of going 2-1-1-1. Curious. I really, in a way, didn't want to push forward to the end of the section. But then I had enough momentum. I wanted to see how it turned out. Turned out okay, with certain elements of unease, and those are the things I would have stopped to fix, the moments of arbitrariness. So. Myself permission to carry on. That's the first version. Okay, so instead of second finger on the G sharp, it's third finger, which from a previous exploration of this movement last week, I had already decided it's a good decision. Paid no attention to it today. I didn't give myself time. Okay, that's version 1. Third, and then left hand goes to fourth. Works like a charm. Obviously, I'll need to review that chromatic. I want to review the second statement, the second phrase. Doesn't take much reviewing. I mean, it's, if I follow my fingering indication, it immediately signals the differences in what's written. It's just a chromatic scale. Right hand, 3, 3, 5, 5, 3, 3, 3. So 3, 3. When there are bigger chords, whether it be a 6th here or a 7th here, there are 2 in a row. So, and you just show that. I've got 2 little ones, 2 big ones, 1, 2, 3 little ones. You see that, although I missed the last note, there's a scooting forward. There's a sense that when I've got a sense of belonging of these groups, they kind of play themselves. So these are dramatically different sensations, playing 5-2-1 on D major first inversion, and then playing 5-2-1 on F, A flat, E on this minor major 7. This is much more comfortable. This is tilted with the thumb on the black note. This, even though it's bigger, is easy to get to, so they have a nice relationship of going towards lesser tension. So I have. Going to the hardest thing is just going to fourth finger on F, which I like because of the fact that I'm comfortable on fifth finger here. I'm not going 4 to 5, I'm going 5 to 4. So my arm will deliver me comfortably to F, to H to F, fourth finger, which will probably mean I'll tilt the hand slightly too, so as to align it without stretching. I don't want to stretch. Don't want to reach around my own hand position. I want to deliver it straighter. So that's where the tilt helps. Yes. This to here, this to there, this to there. Let's see how that fits with the left hand. Just to see, yep. Let's see. I wanted to know on fourth finger, I needed to know that. So fourth goes to fifth. 4 goes to 5. Is that right? 3 black notes. So from to discomfort with the 2 on a white note, to relative comfort with all 3 notes black, to real comfort with the 2 long fingers on black notes. So those 3 sensations: yuck, adequate, good, and finish. Yuck, adequate, good, and finish. So yuck, adequate, good, finish. Yuck all the way. Okay, now of course, because the right hand has been doing such interesting things, my standard chromatic fingering that I would normally trust implicitly fails me, because it says, what should I be doing to mirror what the other hand is doing? The answer is it should hold its own. For my consciousness, that means, for example, I like to put fourth finger on F sharp on chromatics in the left hand, and it works perfectly. 4, 3, 2, 1, 3, 2, 1 here. So I have to tell myself that 4. When my body fights back, those are the places where I have to involve my mental capacities. For example, going to 3, 2, 1 here on one of these comfortable chords is very different from going to one where I'm having to fight a little bit for position. This is the second quarter, the 3rd eighth note of 26. I've decided I'm going to stick with 1, 2, 3 for all the little chords. So my choice, I still have a choice. I could go 3 to 4 on B, and then 1, 2, 3, or I could go 3 to 5. 5 has the advantage of being shorter, easier to toss my hand past. 4 has the advantage of being longer. I can move it with greater ease. It's also beside the 3. So that's what I'm I'm going to put it down, just so I'm aware I made a decision. Forte. Okay, this 1-2 I've indicated on the 5th of 28 in the left hand. Terribly important because not only do I have this oscillation in the left hand, but if I don't go to something like 1 and 2, my right hand and my left hand will interfere with one another quite a lot. And I like it, so. It's worth it to remind myself of all the black notes followed by a nice tilted diminished chord, so. I think in the bottom C major chord, I'm going to play third finger on top, just to get me ready to go up the octave. I could go 1, 3, 5, but that's an awful long way to travel. And this provides linkage. Prokofiev dance tunes. Okay, I will stop when I get to those arpeggios. That's a good demarcation point. Lots and lots of little details, especially because of all the added notes that Prokofiev provides, that have to be able to stick. And the only way to make them stick is to make them sensible, that my body has to embrace them, or my mind, or preferably both. There we go. So moving in on the C-sharp minor chord, for example, second inversion. Those are all parts of the vocabulary that have to be taken care of. I can't just play them all straight and hope for the best. I want there to be not only a familiarity, but a sense of reasonableness. Yea, even comfort if possible, you know. At the very least, go back to my favorite word for practicing, optimize, so that it may not be my favorite word, it's one of the words I use a lot. So this belongs finishes here. This belongs with this. This belongs with this. You notice this one moves into the thumb. This one comes out to the white notes. So move in, come, out. Okay. Now, that's why it's so important to have a good fingering because you certainly don't want to be thinking about that. It has the fastest motion, has to complete the deal quickly. Oh, 4. Okay, well, I'll look ahead. C, same theme, but boy, does it look different. It feels different because of all the rather big chords in the right hand alone, and these truly bizarre quintuplet things. Having mused over them earlier on about the fact that it's at this tempo impossible to actually play it evenly. Rhythmically evenly. If it were slow enough, then the divisions between the notes that are close in hand and the ones that are far away could match. You could use the same articulation and make it rhythmically straight. But in essence, what Prokofiev has found is a notation that cannot be produced the way it's written, literally. So the result is there's an inherent grouping, and I'm guessing he found that this was the best way of notating it. In other words, do something that is literally impossible, but that results in a certain quality. In a way, it's a stroke of genius to do that because he's kind of defining a rubato, he's defining an inaccuracy that can be duplicated accurately. You accurately duplicate the inability to play evenly, and the result is you play it the way he heard it, or the way he experienced it. It's a little bit irritating sometimes to have a notation that you know in no way is possible to duplicate, and that happens all the time. I've had, in this piece certainly, lots of those experiences with held notes, with leaps here, and with keeping even. So once you've decided, as I have, on what I'm trying to accomplish. In other words, I cannot give in to the frustration of saying, I'm going to try my hardest to play it really, really evenly, when I know that no matter how hard I try, it's never going to be really, really even. I can make these even and these even, but there's no way at this tempo that I would avoid a gap. Even pedaling, there's going to be a gap. So I'm going to embrace the gap and imagine a different notational system, you know, something maybe like an elastic in the middle, where you get a glob of 3 notes here and a glob of 3 notes there, and they're a little bit stretched apart. And so 3-note glob, 3-note glob, and something in the middle. That's what I'm going to think anyway for now. So. Okay. That's different. Down to the third, so. Yeah, so he's made adjustments in the melody. I see I've made a turnover fingering for 37, 38. 2-1 for the second instead of 1-2. Because, again, for my hand, it's easier to grab quickly and accurately. Here I've written 1, 2. Oh, I've written the same kind of thing. Here I haven't written anything. D sharp. I have written D sharp, which means it's not C sharp. So it's that. It's a augmented second on top, regular second on the bottom. Now, the problem is I'm not seeing it right away. I'm looking at the chord as if I'd never seen it before. So, among other things, I'm going to go 2-1, and I'm going to write that the C is natural, so I can perhaps better grab that chord and understand it visually. Here I've written all white notes, so obviously I was having trouble reading them, all black notes. It's just a half diminished seventh on C. First inversion, that's 4-5. That's kind of, my body would assume that, but I'm going to write it anyway, okay? Let me go back. I guess it's a nice relief when there's a chord that I recognize right off the bat, like lots of C majors. C major, C major, C major. An F major. 5-1. Okay, so that turnover fingering, the 2 to 1, by doing it sequentially, 2, releasing, 2, releasing, that's really working nicely. I'm very happy with that. So, this is a big chord, even though I can reach it, it's still a big chord. So, and if my hand is slightly tilted in a different place, just trying to reach it by opening my hand up, I'm likely to miss it. So I have to be sure that I've optimized how I approach the keyboard, which in the case of anything big, and I always say that for my small-handed students, when they're playing octaves, for example, that they always need to approach those octaves from the body to the keyboard and open up at the last moment, so as to cut down the angles. When you approach a big chord over the keys, you have to deal with the rise of the keys, which means you have to make your hand bigger rather than more comfortable. So here I'm looking for the optimal way of approaching the keyboard to get me the 10th and the notes that fill in. And that won't happen if I come from this chord and just sidle up to the G major chord. I have to feel that I'm ready, that I'm actually coming down from G major. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put a little line in the music. So I'm not grabbing that, but rather that I'm starting fresh. Got it. And then compresses. The bizarre last chord of 40, which is written G sharp, D flat, G flat, D flat. You know, I can't comprehend that in a hurry. It looks a lot like an F sharp major chord with an added 9 G sharp here, but it doesn't matter. What matters is it's 4 black notes over the span of a 9th, which is smaller than these 4 white notes over the span of a 10th. So that compression, continuing compression to here, is something that binds together. By starting with this most challenging chord by itself, rather than reaching to it, I make it much easier for myself. So there's a little mental breath right there. Start right there and finish the job. Tilt, then go here, skip a bit. Tilt, okay. Difference between this chord and this chord is A flat versus an A natural. So that gives a natural choreography. I come out to the white notes, and then the third chord involves a double thumb. So that means, unlike the one with the black note, it's not tilted the same way. It's closer to this. And then, of course, with 3 black notes, I'm tilted again. So it's tilt, and then all white. Almost. Okay, so the funny thing about this passage is, of course, these things continue at pace. The right hand has all the melodic and all the harmonic interest, but the left hand is going to get all the attention, even though it's repetitious, because it's just inherently, it needs your vision so much more. So it's one of those things where if I'm distracted by not fully knowing this, and I don't fully know it, then putting it together is going to require me to either memorize the right hand or in some other fashion slow things down so that I can at the very least, and I seem to recall saying this, that I have to practice the twos, because each one of those twos represents one arpeggio. You see, I've got it as 4, 1, 2, 4 going to 1, 3, 5. So that's for me a nice unit. In other words, it's half of the phrase. Young. Especially because here we have different versions of close position C major, open position, and then back again. So there's a symmetry. Funniest thing. So here it's F sharp, here's G sharp. F sharp, G sharp, but it's small. They're both ninths. And both of the black notes are second finger black notes. That's useful to know too. The spacing is somewhat different. This has the tritone, this has just the third. You always have to make those decisions, up, above, or below. So, I do note, the left hand is an 8th note at the bottom, so it's likely to release earlier. So it's going to find its way before the right hand. In that case, I think my right hand is going to go over. Besides, this is so much more demanding, so it needs contact with the keys, I think. And which brings up my original fingering choice. 4th keeps me out further. 5th would get me closer to my right hand, which I don't like. But let's just experiment. See what I'm doing now with the reversal is I'm using the longer finger in the right hand, using second finger in the right hand, which keeps me lower and further away from the keyboard. I'm also experimenting with crossing down in it. Fancier fingering, but there's no reason to be fancy if it's not going to do you any good. I'm always willing to experiment, though. I've got to change to C major. reverse. Which was my preferred choice. Go to C major, please. Yeah. Now, I'll try. Experimenting now with going 2, 3, 5, 1 here. I don't think I'm going to like it though. Okay, right now I'm thinking what I think I originally thought that made more logical sense, but that doesn't necessarily matter. The body says no, but I'm going to bring my right hand over sopra. So. Let me see, just a little bit more. E minor. This is where I have to clear the keyboard early enough to set up this big G major chord. If I wait till the last moment, I'll miss it every time. Yeah. Whoops, all E minor, just not just half of it. Yes. D minor. Here's one that changes within the arpeggio. A flat, then G major. G major, let's see. I don't think I can do better than what I've done. 5 to 1, and again 5 to 1. This to there, this to there. And do what we do in C major, only do it in G. I'm sure I've said this before, but this is a passage that absolutely will have to be memorized to do well. I am getting somewhere, but it's time for me to take a break. See ya.